I've been putting bad guys away for 44 years. I've been part of investigating over 1,000 deaths. I've been a part of putting more than 400 murders in prison, and I'm still at it. I'm Tim Corbett. These are my cases. This isn't your typical criminal profile podcast. This is Killer Catchers. Good evening. My name's Tim Corbett. I'm owner of Corbett Investigation Service. You can reach me at 574-229-8115. Tonight we're going to be talking about Ed Pierce. Ed was a man that was killed back in 2014, August 12th, as a matter of fact. Next to me is Brian Cook. Brian is a St. Joseph County police officer. At the time of this incident, he was working homicide with me. Next to him is Lance Anderson. Lance is a St. Joseph County police officer also. Lance was a technician. Cookie, as we call him, was an investigator. On the phone also is Jackie Waltman. Jackie is the niece to Ed. Jackie, since you're on the phone and not here, and we are recording it, I got to get your permission. Is it okay if we record you during this?
Yes.
Okay. Anytime you want to jump in, jump in. I'm going to take you back to August 12, 2014, in about the 6,000 block of South Michigan Street, 31 South, at a rundown hotel where Ed was living. Ed was a man of simple means, kind of kept to himself. I would say probably not a real overly friendly guy. Is that a fair statement, Jackie?
No, he was a friendly guy to a lot of people, but you cross that bridge and you piss somebody off, you ain't crossing back over.
Okay. So generally, he was not real friendly, or
No, he was very friendly. Just, he had been through a lot in his life, and he would give the shirt off of his back to anybody for so many things, but you do him wrong once and you're not coming back.
Okay. Well, we ended up making an arrest on that, a woman by the name of Terry Wrigley, and we'll tell you a little bit about her. Again, in these things, I don't talk a whole lot about the suspect or give them credit for anything other than the time that they earned. So you're going to be hearing a lot from these guys about Ed, and Jackie will also be talking about. Cookie, let's go back to that day. We're down at homicide. We get the call. What happened?
Get the call to Mr. Pierce, and a lot of people referred to him as Norby. Is that correct, Jackie? A lot of people knew him as Norby?
Yes.
And South Bend police went to do a welfare check because he hadn't been seen for the weekend. And South Bend police get there and they find him in the room deceased. Well, South Bend knew him as Norby, as I believe he worked part-time at one of the restaurants in South Bend where all the officers used to eat at.
Do drop in.
The do drop in. And so they activated the homicide unit, and I think Lance, you were the homicide guy. You took the van and all the stuff down, correct?
Yes, with Cameron.
Yeah. So anyway, we get down there, and he's passed, and we knew that it was some type of a cutting instrument, and that's when we started knocking on doors and assembling the unit and going from there.
Well, to give a little background about that hotel, it would be one I would say had a lot of transient type individuals living there. It was well known for prostitution. It was well known for drugs. Ed was not involved in any of that. He just happened to be living in an area that had that kind of activity. So we were pretty confident when we first got there and surveying things, just putting common sense into the equation, that it was probably somebody that he knew, that he was familiar with, somebody that he trusted. This didn't look like, although it was a busy street at that time, it wasn't a place that we would think that would be a whodunit type case. So that's why the process of beating on doors and checking for cameras and all that happened. Lance, you got there with Tom Cameron, vans ready. We got the place sealed out of there, or sealed around there, and got people out. What did you guys do first?
We did an initial walkthrough with the officers who went to do the welfare check. It wasn't a large scene. Basically, you walked in the door, you've got the bed sitting there. And off to the right, small hallway, you've got a bathroom. There was a lot of debris in the room, but it was managed in an orderly style, so it was kind of a causeway to the bathroom or towards the bed. He was laying on the floor with the pool of blood around him. So myself and Cameron then backed out, got dressed to go back in and start processing the scene. We took in the equipment we deemed we would need. And once we got photos of the victim in the location he was in, he was taken out for an autopsy to be performed later, at which time Cameron and I then began processing the scene, and we basically had to, like an onion, start peeling everything back. We got a lot of items outside. As we went through the layers, we found what possibly could have been used as the murder weapon. It looked like it was a off-brand from, I believe, Walmart. It was a glass bottle, broken, that had been used to stab him.
If I recall, Lance, Norby, Mr. Pierce, he had lived there for several years.
I know he had been there for quite some time.
Jackie, what was he not? He lived there for several years, correct? And he stayed there prior to the demise of that hotel. I mean, he was like one of the original people, and so he just started staying there weekly, and I believe it turned into several years, like 7 years, I thought. Jackie, is that accurate?
Almost 7 to 10 years he had been there.
So just to hit on what Lance is talking about, the layers. If you take a man that lives in a one-room area for 10 years, you know, he's got his own system, but it's in layers because, like he said, the causeway, it was doable for him. So if you can imagine that, staying in one room for 7 to 10 years and everything you've owned, that's how thick the room was.
Correct.
When you found his body on the floor, you remember how he was dressed, what he had on, as far as how much clothing, not necessarily colors or type, but
I don't remember exactly.
do you remember the scene where the blood was at around him?
Yeah, it was pooled around his head and chest area. When we went into the room, he was actually laying over on the left side of the bed as we walked in. The head would have been pointed toward the south wall. His legs were kind of drawn up. The arm, I believe, was over, his right arm was over his abdomen, but you could see on the chest that there's obviously some wounds underneath, but he had a shirt on, I believe, so we couldn't see the extent of the injuries quite yet. And the same with the head injuries, or neck injuries.
Were you confident it was a homicide, that it wasn't self-inflicted? Or
Correct.
Okay. How long did it take you guys to process that scene?
That took us 2 days.
And that, we're talking, what, a 10 by 12 room maybe with a bathroom on the back of it. So that's another 5 by 6. You're talking very small square footage.
Correct. And again, having accumulated so much of his property within that room for the extended period of time he'd been there, we actually had to bring in a dumpster so that we could go through and, as I said, peel the layers to make sure we weren't missing anything, so that we collected everything.
Well, you got the bottle, the item that was used to stab him. What else? Fingerprints, photos, all that kind of stuff.
Right.
The usual.
The usual. I mean, there were several places where I collected blood swabs in the event that the person might have injured themselves while injuring him. I believe there was a towel in the sink. The water had still been running a little bit. That towel was collected. The TV, I believe, also, that was sitting on the bed. It had been you could see where it had been on the stand next to the bed, but it also had some blood on it. We collected swabs from that as well.
The door wasn't kicked in. There was no forced entry.
Didn't appear to
So
be any forced entry.
that tells us that either the door was unlocked or he knew who the attacker was.
Correct.
Jackie, I'm going to kind of switch to you. You gave us a little thumbnail sketch about Ed. Tell us a little bit more about him.
Well, to go back a little bit, he was 30 years old and had a stroke. So he became paralyzed on his left side completely and struggled with that, obviously, up until the day he passed. I don't know, hearing some of this, it's just kind of, it takes me back to that moment because I don't know, I guess I'm just a little speechless at the moment. Like I said, he was an amazing man, would do anything for anybody. And, you know, there were quite a few years that he was not a part of our life, but after he had his stroke, he struggled a lot and did the best that he could and got back in our lives and, you know, was an amazing uncle to me, to my kids, everything. And
Were you like his caretaker, the one that, checked on him the most and helped him the most?
yeah, once we reconnected, after because like I said, for a while, none of us knew where he was. And then we found out that he was working at Hamilton's Towing, which turned into, being at the Dewdrop a lot and helping out there and doing things. But yeah, once we reconnected, he was at every one of my kids' birthdays, Christmas, Easter, you name it. We had an event. He was there. I went and picked him up, took him shopping, made sure he had clean clothes because living in that hotel, it's not like he had a washer dryer. He didn't have a kitchen. He walked down to the gas station to get dinner, lunch, on the weekends when he wasn't working at the towing place. So, yeah, I did the best that I could for him when I could.
The day that this happened, do you remember where you were at and how you got the information that he was killed? And I'm saying killed, Jackie, because passed to me means I had a heart attack and I dropped over. This wasn't a cardiac event or a natural cause. This was a murder. So in my estimation, the way I describe it is the day he was killed, not the day he passed. But I'm just saying, however you want to say it, you say it, but that's how I feel.
I do remember it like it was yesterday. I was at work and I got the call from the owner of the Dewdrop because all the police officers were in there having breakfast and everybody heard it go over the radio. And a lot of the county and city police officers knew him from the Dewdrop and from Hamilton's, and everybody's like, that's Norby. So the owner of the Dewdrop called me and she's like, hey, I just want to give you a heads up. Nobody has heard from your uncle all weekend and they just got a call. They're going out to check and see if that's him. And the first thing I thought of was he had another stroke. He had a heart attack. I didn't think he would be murdered. And then Cookie and I think it was Tom showed up at the house and told us what actually happened, and it was just like, that's not what I was expecting.
Yeah. Well, you're in the funeral home business, correct?
Correct.
Well, you've seen a lot, but it's a lot different when somebody's coming to you and telling you it's one of yours. And I know Dee Dee at the Dewdrop, who owned the Dewdrop, she took good care of him also. She was a good friend to him.
She was very good to him, and Christy, I mean, there was a lot of people. He had a very good circle of people. Like I said, he would give the shirt off of his back to anybody, but, you piss him off or, you do something out of line, he's not going to sit there and take it like, oh, okay. No, he's going to tell you what he thinks. And as far as that day when I got that call, like I said, I can remember that day like it was yesterday. And being in my line of work, I was the one that went and got him from the hospital after his autopsy. I seen him. Granted, I didn't see him like you guys seen him laying on the floor. And, I've been in this business for almost 12, 13 years now. and I've buried quite a few of my own family members, my grandmother, my own father, my uncle, aunts. Nobody can ever understand what a family has to go through when they lose somebody, let alone having to see them the way that they are after something like that happens to him. And that image is burned into my brain, burned. And quite honestly, it confuses me, because knowing my uncle and him having his stroke and being paralyzed, granted, every time from the day that Carrie Wrigley was just on a TV getting her court, sentencing, to every single time she was in court, I was there. I wanted her to see my face. I wanted her to know that whatever she thought she needed to do was ridiculous. Because for my uncle being as paralyzed as he was, whatever she might say that he did or didn't do, all she had to do was push him out of the way and get out of that room. You couldn't even stand in that room. And like they were talking about earlier, going through the layers of everything, oh, I've been there, and I know what it's like. All the stuff that he had and just piled up, you couldn't even walk in that room.
Well, let's get back to the investigation.
Jackie, if I could just clear something up, and I want to make sure that I'm correct in my own mind. You referenced when I got the call several times. You're referring to the call from the Dewdrop. We delivered the message to you in person. Is that correct?
Yes, absolutely.
We never tell somebody over the phone about that. In fact, we've driven to different states before to make sure somebody heard it in person.
Yeah, no.
Okay.
No, that was, no. You guys, no.
I do. I also recall when you trying to describe your uncle, the layers, I believe that you helped us in part of that, because a lot of the layers included his personal effects, which he had gifts from you for different holidays and from family that he had put up in his own fashion that were able to take back from there. So he did have his stuff in order. He had his life, and he was a real person. And I remember that he had a pair of brand new shoes that you had just got him.
Yep.
But anyway, I was just elaborating on the kind of guy he was.
Well, let's focus a little bit on the investigation. After we got there and started dividing up things that needed to be done, I recall that it was we kind of had a focus on what we thought might be going on, and I remember looking up and there were some cameras. And thought, we can't be this lucky. There's all, I don't know how many times we've looked up and there's a camera and you go, we got it. You go in there, well, thing doesn't work. I don't know how to use it. They're fake cameras.
Yeah.
This time it was a little
This
bit.
one actually worked.
Yeah.
We started with talking with the management of the hotel and getting a registry of the time frame and who would have been there, who wouldn't have been there. Knocked on doors, because this kind of hotel, if you can imagine, is like you get roofers coming in town that are working for a month. This is the kind of place that they would take a room for a month. They would have a place to sleep and stay for a month. So you would get a lot of contractors in town that would stay for a couple weeks at a time. So we referenced everything to that and saw who would have been around. And there are another couple of people that had stayed there for a little more than a year. Nobody as long as Norby, but there were people that knew the area. After talking to all the people and getting the registry from the hotel, we kind of had a line of people that we were looking at. We had spoke with the manager, and he said, yes, the camera does work. It's an older system, but I know how to work it. So
You knew how to work it?
no, he said he knew how to work it.
Oh, I thought.
No, I'm not that.
I didn't. I thought maybe we were talking about a telegraph or something, but go ahead.
Anyways, so we got the time frame down when he was last seen and when he was found, and we narrowed our range of searching on that video from the time he was last seen going into his room till the time the police officers arrived. It was very, very clear that when he came back, you could see him walking into his room. And I believe that was on a Friday evening. And it was sometime over the weekend. It was either Saturday or Sunday. But what was the day of the week, Jackie, when he was found?
It was a Tuesday, and I believe, from what I remember from what you guys had found, that it looked like everything had happened on Saturday. Because,
So
he was found on Tuesday.
The video showed a female going into the room, and she was there for a short time. I want to say 15 minutes, and then she left. And about 10 to 15 minutes again, then she returned back to the room for a short time, maybe 2 or 3 minutes. Then she left Norby's room again. And then the video goes all the way till police officers arrive on the Tuesday morning or Monday evening, whenever it was, Monday morning. No one else came or went out of that room. So we had our scope narrowed for this female, and that was a matter of figuring out who she was. The video, we did not see her go back into what room she came out of. But after doing the interviews, we found out that she had stayed that week with a guy that was staying there for a while. That guy's name was Julius. We talked to Julius, and he confirmed, yes, she had been staying there, and this is where we could find her. And I believe we tracked her down somewhere up on the north side of South Bend eventually. A few days later, we brought her in. We'd interviewed several people from the hotel, but it was pretty much looking for this female. This Julius that stayed there and had this female, he was shown the video and asked, who is this female that we're seeing right here? And he said, this is Terry Wrigley, the one that was staying with me that week. No bones about it, 100%. Once we located Terry Wrigley, we took her to homicide to be interviewed.
Well, it's pretty clear. She's in her 15 minutes, so, common sense is going to dictate that's when he was killed.
Right.
So she left, and she comes back and stays 2 or 3 minutes. She wants to come back and confirm that he's dead. Right. She wants to know the answer to that. She's not going back. Don't want to leave any impression like she went back to do life-saving measures, called an ambulance, did anything to help this man. She went back to look at what she did to confirm it in her own mind. And from that point on, it was just going to be lying, covering up, more lies, more cover up. She comes down to County Metro Homicide Unit. She's Mirandized. She's taken into a room, audio and video. How'd that interview go?
First of all, it was interesting because when we interviewed her, we noticed she had several cuts on her hands. And that was one of the questions. And she fumbled a little bit and said, I was working around a house in South Bend, and that's where I got the cuts. But she was very, very cold, very, just really no emotion, just pretty flat. And she at first, she just denied. Don't know him, don't know anything about it. I was never in any other room. Kept talking to her, and she kept getting herself caught up on a few words here and there, enough for my partner and I to pick her a little bit further apart. Then we got into her past. And then her demeanor changed a little bit. She almost got not aggressive, but angry. And because I believe I asked her, was she a prostitute? And she became very angry and said, I used to prostitute. I haven't done it anymore. I don't do it anymore. And I told him I wasn't a prostitute. So then I was like, okay, well, told who? And that's when she kind of knew she kind of stepped on her tongue. Then she shifted gears and went into, she had stopped in his room to see him, and that he had come at her, and she was upset with him because when they would pass each other on the street or walking on the gas station, he would always flirt with her and make small passes at her. And
How do you flirt with a prostitute? I thought, here's the act, here's the money. It's a business deal, right? You don't flirt with a prostitute. Here's flowers, here's candy.
Yeah.
You know, I'd really like to stroke your hair. It's more.
And then the sad part is Mr. Norby, like Jackie said, was paralyzed on one side, so he kind of walked very pronounced with a limping gait. So it's not like he was smacking her on the ass when she walked by him or anything.
He wasn't hitting on her. All that was an excuse to justify her actions. He came on to me. He didn't come on to anything. She thought that he had money. She thought that he had something in there that she could get and either talk him out of it or make him feel bad and here, give it to me or whatever. That's her excuse to justify what she did with him.
Right.
To him.
Yeah, no, I agree with you.
Yeah,
But
flirt with a prostitute.
It was odd to see the change in her character when she went from she's no longer a prostitute. You could tell that it brought an ire out of her. She was angry, and my guess would be with herself. And maybe she hates men. I have no idea. But she finally stated, yes, I stabbed him one time, and then I left. Went back to the room and cleaned the blood off. And
She stopped along the way and called for an ambulance.
No.
Say I was attacked. This man is partially paralyzed attacked me, and I just defended myself. No. Did she go get a towel and come back and try and stop the bleeding? No. She went down and washed the blood off of her hands from a guy she just killed, and then went back after 15 minutes to make sure me, the former prostitute that always wanted to be in the Prostitution Hall of Fame, completed my task.
And she also then admitted that she had cut herself while she stabbed him one time, which she maintained. And I can't remember, Lance, do you remember how many stab wounds he had?
It was 61.
He had 61 stab wounds on his body. And she said she does not remember anything past one, which I don't believe, but...
But she could remember to leave the scene and get cleaned up, and remember once she cleaned up to go back to the scene to check, but she just can't remember the other 60 stabbings.
Right.
Just can't get it done.
Right. By the time we were all done, she just had no room to go. And I believe she just pled straight up and she pled guilty to manslaughter. Didn't even want to contest or take it to court. I believe she ended up with close to 30 years, 27 and some change, 26 and some change.
Well, Lance, getting back to you, who attended the autopsy? Do you remember?
I do not. I know Tom Cameron was primary on this. That's why I'm not sure what the test lab results were on the swabs that were collected to say that, when she cut herself, if her blood was present in there or not.
Well, if you guys are tied up for 2 days at the scene, because we would seal it,
Right.
post somebody up on it so nobody can come or go, you come back, you go back in. I would doubt whether it was one of you two guys. It would have been
probably
somebody
been
from
Ken
the other team.
Cornelis or, I believe the reason I was working with Tom is because Kenny was off, so maybe Alex.
Well, the 61 stab wounds, all upper body, correct?
I believe they were. They were basically from the navel up.
Okay.
And I believe the fatal one was the neck.
Now, here's somebody that can't really defend himself. If she was all that scared, she could have just, like Jackie said, pushed him down, hit him in the head with a bottle, leave, call the cops and say, hey, this is what happened, and try and spin it up that way. Instead, it took good investigation, good evidence gathering. Thank God for the cameras that actually worked, that videoed, and clearly enough, you remember showing her the video? Or just tell her about it.
I believe actually I did show her a clip of the video. And I asked her if she knew who the young lady was going into Mr. Pierce's room. And I believe that's when she said, yeah, that's me. And I think that's when the gear shifted.
Jackie, hearing all this, I know you heard some of it in court. You probably haven't heard all of it. How are you feeling? I think I know.
Yeah. um, like I kind of said before, I mean, I guess I'm that unique person that is in a different situation than any other family is typically in this situation, because not too many people have something like this happen to their loved one and then have to be on the other side of that wall taking care of them and getting them ready. And, you know, I remember that there was a lot, but I guess hearing that number again and remembering, yeah, between his chest and his neck and his face, it's like I just don't understand how she could not have defended herself and pushed him away and got out of there, because there's no way he was going to hurt her with one hand, and for her to have to do what she did the way that she did it.
Jackie, first off, he didn't attack her. Second,
no, I'm just saying,
didn't.
you know, to hear, being in court and hearing her side of, you know, well, she felt threatened and she, you know, reacted this way, and then to tell, you know, Cookie and Tom or whoever she was in the interview with, she stabbed him once. Bullshit. You stabbed this man multiple times and you took his life. There was absolutely no reason to do that. I mean, it just...
Stabbing is one of the most personal things you can do. You know, anybody can shoot from yards away, but when you're stabbing, you're actually making physical contact. You expend a lot of energy. You're talking 61 motions, however she did it, jabbing, you know, overhand, you know, ice pick, hammer, however you want to consider how she was holding the glass. Those are actions that you don't forget. You know, I know there's a lot of psychological things out there and people can make excuses and stuff. You remember what you did. She knew exactly. Now, maybe she didn't count. I know police officers that have been in shootings, they say they shot 3 times and they actually shot 8 or 9 because you're not physically counting. You just remember the actions. But you don't forget and say, I did it one time. You are going to be physically tired. You're going to be breathing heavy. You're probably going to be sweating. You know, this is in the summer, so obviously it's going to be hot out. And then you have the wherewithal to go back and check your handiwork. So she can spin that story any way she wants. That's the one she created to make it sound better for her, like she's the victim, when in fact she was not.
Exactly. She definitely was not.
And what Jackie was talking about was listening to her say what she did. That's the beautiful thing when somebody pleads straight up guilty. In the court, they have to stand in front of the judge and explain what they did. So that's gratifying within itself that she had to actually admit that she had taken his life.
Yeah, you have to set a factual basis, and yeah, that does give a little relief that the family doesn't have to go through it. But you still have to sit there while you're sitting out in the audience in the pew, Jackie, and she's up there. Did you get an opportunity to speak on behalf of your uncle?
I did, and honestly, at that moment, the one thing I can say, there's a couple things that stand out. Being there that day was super, super hard, but the fact that I don't know exactly that you had 57 officers or 10 officers that worked in homicide, but I remember that door opening and all these guys coming in from homicide and supporting our family, and it meant so much to us that you guys, the job that you do and the peace that you try to bring to families at the hardest times of their life is just amazing, absolutely amazing. And I did have an opportunity to go up there, but at that moment, I couldn't say what I wanted to say because I probably would have gotten in trouble. And I just remember, like I said, every single time she was in court, all I did was keep my eyes directly on her. And does she know who I am? She probably knows now, or she put two and two together and maybe figured something out. But until the day I die, I will always stand up for my uncle, and I will be his voice.
Well, what do you want to say now that you didn't get a chance to say then?
Oh.
Keep the F-bombs to a minimum, will you?
What's that?
Keep the F-bombs to a
We're
minimum.
only allowed so many
Yeah,
bleeps
I
per
was gonna say,
session.
I really don't think it's probably appropriate.
Well, look, if I can do it, you can do it.
Like, I think my biggest thing is knowing my uncle my whole entire life, with him being involved in my life when I was a kid, and then the time that he was away from us, but then when he did come back into our lives, and to hear what happened from her side of it, because obviously I don't know his side, but I can only imagine from his side of things that there's so many other ways that she could have gotten out of this, and who knows what was said that triggered it, type of thing. But her actions were overly aggressive. And I will be honest, at my age and where I am in my life with my kids and my life, what happened, it has scarred me. It has scarred me bad, but it has also taught me a lot. And there's always going to be times when you overreact, but at the same time, sometimes people don't realize what you've been through and need to try to take a step back and understand and be a little bit supportive, but there is never any reason to harm somebody over anything.
Okay, thank you. Lance?
Jackie, also what I want to say is Ed had a lot in that room. When I said, the corridor that we had to go through and we peeled everything back, I didn't see a lot of signs of struggle in that room, like there was a fight. So I don't know what set her off to do that. I don't think on tape she was shown taking a bottle into that room. The bottle was probably taken from that room. She smashed it and then went after Ed. I don't know what transpired between them, but there wasn't a great struggle.
Well, look, those are clear conscience decisions. Correct. I have to leave this area to go to his room. I have to get in his room. Once I get in there, I have to look around for a weapon of choice.
Correct.
Pick it up, and it may have broke by striking him with it. She may have broken on and started stabbing. Those are clear conscious decisions. 61 times over. The same motion in a different area. 61 times. Not once, not twice, 61 times. One stab would have been enough to get him off her if you buy her story, which I don't. Like I said, that thing should have started off with once upon a time. Yeah. There's no place in there to really fight. Hell, you can hardly walk, much less fight.
Blood evidence was in one location.
I believe that she went in there, like you said, I believe she went to get something. She went to rob him, knowing that he's partially paralyzed, that he would be an easy stain, an easy hit. And I believe from the stab wounds and the defensive marks on his arm, the one that he could move, I believe she did not realize that man would fight like he did for his life. And I think he gave her a hell of a fight, but I think that's what happened. I believe that she didn't expect him to fight back. And when he was able to get his arm up and I hope hit her a few times or rip some hair out or something, whatever he was able to do to her, that she realized that she had made a mistake.
Well, the mistake was being a criminal.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
And that's a lifestyle choice. I mean, she didn't wake up and all of a sudden she's a prostitute. She made a choice to do that. She made a choice to leave her room and go down to Ed's. She didn't attack one of the roofers, did she? No, because they'd have, kicked her ass up over her ears. She went and picked on somebody that was physically limited on protecting himself.
Right.
picked on somebody weaker. That's what bullies do. That's what savages do.
And my guess is, talking to all the people around there and then talking with Jackie, there's probably a history of Norby probably loaning her money or giving her cigarettes or something, and she just exploited that and it took advantage of that.
So his biggest problem is he's guilty of being
A nice guy.
compassionate,
Yeah.
friendly, helping out. So for that, he gets a death sentence by a prostitute. You got anything?
No, just Jackie, sorry that you had to hear and relive that again, darling. I know you've been through it once. You're doing great for what it's worth. That is something that you don't want to ever have to go through, especially like you said, you're in the funeral business and you did it from both sides of the wall. Just an apology that you had to relive that.
I appreciate your apology, but at the same time, I cannot thank you and everybody that was involved in this case enough for your support, your help, your understanding, everything. Because honestly, without you guys, I wouldn't be here where I am now dealing with what I am. I would be confused and stressed and more of an emotional upset, than just hearing this again. I mean, you guys did your job. She's where she needs to be. Yes, she's going to get out at some point. I hope she learned her lesson, that's for sure.
Well, Jackie, I've said it before on this program. I don't know how many times. You can't let these people live rent-free in your head. You can't let them have a space in there where they dominate you, where it eats you up, or you're not a good mother or a good anything. So don't let them do that to you. Just remember the good stuff, and you'll never forget, but don't let it dominate you.
Absolutely. I agree.
Well, thanks for coming on. We're at the end now. You know Terry Wrigley is in prison for 27 years. We're done with her. Not going to think about her. You know who Ed Pierce is. You know a lot about his life. I've said it before, this is a tough job, and you got to be tough to do it. You have to live through this stuff. You have to think about it. Jackie's talking about one incident. We're talking about, I know myself, I've handled over 1,000 deaths. I've seen everything that you don't even want to think about. These guys have been through autopsies and scenes that you don't even want to think about. So when I hear people say, cops don't care, you're all the same, systemic racism and all that kind of stuff. Of course, it's all said without any kind of proof. It's just said by some politician that, wants your vote. So he's going to spin you up, or she's going to spin you up any way you can. Before I get going on that, I'll just cut it off. But what I want to do, I want to thank all the first responders. I want to thank all the cops. I want to thank all the veterans of wars that are alive. The ones that are still over there fighting, we're able to do what we're doing right now because of people like that, because of people like you that do care. So when you hear that kind of stuff and you hear somebody like Jackie, again, Jackie didn't get a script from us and say, Jackie, say this. This came from the heart. She could have said, we're the biggest, pack of idiots there is. And, we just have to eat that. And if we screw up, we'll tell you we screw up. But I'll be go to hell if I'm going to let somebody pound on me and my profession and the people that I work with just because we're a punchline at a party, or because it's politically correct and because I have a different opinion than you. I'm a racist, a sexist, a homophobe, a xenophobe. Hell, I don't even know what a xenophobe is. I thought it was an instrument you play. I don't know where these words come from. But that's not the case. Just because I have a different opinion just means it's a different opinion. And I've earned that right. And I will tell you exactly what I think. So for the people that have fought for our land and our safety and security, thank you. Thank you. If you ever need anything from me, call. I gave you my number, 574-229-8115. All you got to do is call. I'm not hard to find. If you have questions, if you want to get a hold of me, go to my website, contact me. I'll call you. I'll answer anything you can, or I can. Sometimes I don't know if I'm you or I don't know. But thanks. Jackie, anything you want to say? Last word. I think he's got the bleep machine warmed up for you.
No, I think I've covered everything. Like I said, without you guys, I wouldn't have the peace that I have. My kids wouldn't have the peace that we have, that she got, what she did deserve. And unfortunately, it is what it is, but he was a great man, and it's bullshit. I'm just, he doesn't have to bleep anything out. I'm just going to leave it at that.
Boy, miracles happen all the time, don't they?
Yeah. Okay.
One last thing. I thank you for allowing me to be a policeman for 45 years. It was an honor and a privilege, and if there weren't so many computers and all this stuff that's going on now, I'd go back in a heartbeat, but I don't think I'd make it out of roll call without pissing somebody off, so I'm just going to keep doing what I'm doing, but thank you.
Really? No.
Okay, I probably wouldn't make it into roll call without pissing somebody off.
He was doing that before computers.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jackie.
Thank you.
Take care, Jackie.